Bundle, 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 bundle. My rap style's boom bap, articulate, never mumble. Disney, Hulu, and Max just announced a bundle on the services websites to where customers will be funneled. Apple TV and Paramount Plus is a bundle. Everyone wants to be the one with the buzz like a bee that bumbles. ESPN, TNT, and Fox are now a bundle. A sports JV that Fubo TV hopes will take a tumble. Disney, Hulu, and ESPN is a bundle. I'm over the top, never below like a trundle. Max launched in France with Canal Plus, it's a bundle. You can catch me in a Parisian beast or Duke and German dunkel. Verizon has Netflix and Max, it's a bundle. This rhyme pattern is getting long like the hair of Rapunzel. But isn't Netflix by itself inherently a bundle? A collection of things wrapped up together that you don't want to fumble. The streaming wars is crazy. Welcome to the jungle. I'm a product of the 80s like Guns N' Roses and Mr. Bungle. Blinded by the light at the end of the tunnel. Zora is through subscriptions or Professor G is to the rundle. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble. Everyone knows that houses built with cards will always crumble. Tubies talk about MAUs.
Hello, and we're live for a March special of Bytesize. I'm Ben, your host, and we've got a smart March special. But before we kick into that, I'm going to introduce our speakers who are going to be here during the duration of the show. We've got Paul Larbey as the CEO. We've got David Haughton, who's our SVP of Product and Technology. We've got Luisa, who's our CCO, and also Giles Tongue, who's a familiar face as part of the Bytesize program. But before we dig into the interviews that took place at Mobile Congress, I'm going to ask each one of the guests to say what was one of their main takeaways from Mobile Congress. We'll start with you, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, other than I should probably buy a comfier pair of shoes, I think, it's a long week. I think for me it was just the demand for bundling now, and we saw that across all the content partners that we had on the booth. They were really keen to find new ways of taking their products to market and see bundling either through telcos or banks or retailers as a key element to that. And I think the level of interest in content providers has sort of increased every year as we go back over the last 3 or 4 MWCs. But this year was right off the scale, I thought. So for me, that was the most obvious thing that I came away with.
Great. And what about you, Luisa? What was one of your key takeaways?
Yeah, for me, I think that one of the biggest takeaways from the Mobile World Congress was basically seeing how telecom actually is becoming an ecosystem of business. So we see that operators actually, they are partnering with either technology companies, satellite providers. They are even partnering between each other. What does that mean for us? That they are becoming actually, for them, the future of the digital service will be built through the platforms and partnerships, not a standalone brands itself. So that's I come back when we see how that works in our ecosystem. We see that really the partners, the brands, they cannot win alone anymore. So they really need to bring together those forces and partners, and that comes with the digital services, as Paul was mentioning. But also we saw the other examples. So telcos partnering with chip companies for AI networks, edge platforms with telcos and other telcos, satellite coverages for telcos and space companies. So, they bring together forces to stay relevant in the ecosystem. So that really talks to what we see on our day-to-day life on the bundling side.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Luisa. And what about you, David? What was only one takeaways?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me was really getting the opportunity to get direct feedback within like that really compressed short time frame on the DVM and how it helps both our existing and future customers. So we took obviously the opportunity to talk about some of the roadmap items, but actually the most exciting thing for us was the demo. So we demoed how we're actively exploring evolving the DVM CX consumer experience. And that included a great sort of insight into how AI will become the access layer for managing subscriptions. So the reaction from that across all the demos that we did was very positive, and I thought that it was a good opportunity for us because it helped confirm that we're heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. And Giles, finally, what was your key takeaway?
Well, the number one takeaway, which I'll take into next year, is don't accept any dinners that start after 9 p.m. That's a ridiculous idea. But from last year, we saw AI sort of whitewash everywhere. Or, every stand had AI, and it didn't always have a great application or meaning. I think this year it started to really as David just explained, we've got a practical use case. We've seen Deutsche Telekom, Orange, and others having practical use cases. So I think this was the year that AI went from being, funny robots to actually real day-to-day use cases, and that to me is really exciting, and it marries in well with our own story of the future of bundling waits for no one. So yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much for those. So we're now going to go back to the show floor, relive that moment again, and we're all going to be here watching it. But I ask anyone that is watching, please do, if you have any questions, we're here at the end of this to address those questions. So pop them in the chat. We're live streaming, so we can address them at a moment that makes sense. But yeah, for now, we'll say bye to the speakers, and we'll see you guys later on. All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Bytesize from Bango. I'm Ben, your host, and we're at a March edition at MWC. I'm going to be joined by CEO Paul Larbey, and we're going to be talking about the future of bundling that waits for no one. So Paul, how have you been getting on in the show?
Well, I don't know about you, but it's good to sit down, isn't it? My goodness, what a busy week we've been, and it's just been great to see. It feels like we've created this sort of almost nexus, this meeting place of content providers with subscription services and people who want to resell them. We've had telcos, we've had banks, and it's great to talk to content providers, great to talk telcos, but the best thing is, the exciting thing is seeing them talking together. I think it's just been absolutely fantastic. It's been hard work, it's been long days, but I think absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, excellent. I'd like to talk about the report, right? So we launched this week at MWC. Can you talk to us about why we actually did this report in the first place?
Yeah, well, they say the best way to imagine the future is to sort of create it, and I think that's what we've done. And it's always bold and risky somewhat to predict the future, but I think we spend a lot of time, we have a lot of expertise. We've talked to our partners, we've done some primary research, and I think together what we've built is what is a really high probability and compelling vision for how bundling is going to evolve, and I think that's quite exciting, and certainly our partners have enjoyed hearing about it, and our partners have also enjoyed seeing it because we brought it to life with a demonstration here at the booth, so I think it's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I think anyone who wants to access that, they can actually go on there and have a go at it.
Yeah, absolutely,
It's really easy to use. So let's talk about the three themes in a bit more detail. So let's start with dynamic payment. Can you explain a little bit what that's about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you look at today, we buy subscriptions, right? And they're generally on a monthly basis. So we purchase a service for a particular month. But the monthly subscription is quite a blunt instrument, right? We watch films, we consume entertainment, we manage that in moments. So to actually bill for a month is quite a blunt instrument. And, part of the research we did showed that already 16% people want to pay for a usage basis. So we really think that will evolve. And I think it's going to evolve in two dimensions. It will evolve in how it's billed, but I think it'll also be involved in how people interact with that bill. So, think about rewards for binge watching a series, rewards for engagement, rewards for answering things. So we almost sort of a bit of gamification, I think, will come in there. So that's the first force that we define, the dynamic payment. I know Giles is going to talk a little bit about that later.
Awesome. And then the second one, so we're talking about AI on this one. Do you want to talk about that one?
You have to talk about AI at Mobile World Congress, right? Every booth has AI plastered all over it, right? But I think it's a really important point because it's a sort of how you interact with that service. I think traditionally you go to any telco that's offering services, it's a click on a tile sort of approach. And what we built and what we've been showing here is sort of a chat interface for that. And you can chat in text, you can chat using your voice, because we think the way you discover a series and the way you discover subscriptions will change. So rather than subscribing to a particular SVOD service, you'll say, I like sports content, so find me a package of sports content. And so the way you interact and discover those subscriptions, I think, will really change. And I mean, some of the surveys are quite random. Almost 1 in 5 of Americans are willing to delegate the entire authority of choosing subscriptions and picking subscriptions to an AI agent, right? Which, given that AI is relatively new, I think it's a phenomenal statistic. So, but I think that's definitely the way the market's going to go. And certainly we had some good feedback on that.
And David Haughton's going to be talking about that theme later as well, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So the market split, the third and final force of the report. Do you want to talk to us about that a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fundamentally going to define people's role in the ecosystem. And I think we've coined this phrase of bundle or be bundled. And I think that's the key question. And I think it's really important if you're in a telco, because I think there's sort of almost an inflection point with the emergence of MVNOs, branded by everybody from sort of YouTube celebrities to sort of banks, right? The communications is becoming sort of a service. And I think the telcos are at an important point where they need to decide, do they use their brand and their customer relationships to resell third-party services? Or are they at risk of themselves being a service that's resold in somebody else's brand? So it's a really interesting inflection point. So yeah, I think there's lots to think about there for the telcos. And certainly I think you've all realised that, and we're all here wearing our bundle or be bundled pins. And I think it's a message that's really resonated. And Luisa will talk a little bit about that later.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for introducing this bite size. We're going to be going to Giles, who's going to be the first one to talk about dynamic payments and challenging that monthly fee. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the first interview of 3. I'm joined by Giles Tongue, who's VP of Marketing, and we're going to be talking about dynamic payment, challenging that monthly fee. Before we get into this, welcome. Hello.
Hi Ben, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really good, thanks. Having a good show?
Yeah, it's been great so far. I think we've never been busier, and the new messaging is landing well about the future of bundling. So yeah, all good so far.
Good. So before we get into the report, I'd love to talk about just the subscription economy as a whole. What are we seeing? What differences have we seen so far?
Yeah, well, the subscription economy continues to grow. Everything from subscription video on demand to subscription toilet roll is available. So we're, as subscribers, taking on more and more different products as subscription services. But with that is subscription fatigue.
Yes.
We're finding that people can't remember how and where they've subscribed. They're subscribing to subscriptions they're no longer using. So there's a lot of optimization to be done in our personal lives about how we subscribe.
Excellent. I think it's a really good, really summary. So I really want to talk about one of the challenges we're seeing right now with the payment ecosystem at the moment with subscriptions. So there is a monthly fee. That's what it's all revolved around. Can you tell us about what we're seeing from this report and what it's kind of highlighting for us?
Yeah, one of the surprising findings from our report was that 43% of the respondents said that they're finding that they're wasting a lot of money with their subscriptions. So they're looking for an alternative way of subscribing and interested in innovative new approaches to subscriptions.
Okay, very interesting. So I think I want to kind of talk a little bit more. In the report, we say that it's the monthly fee is a blunt instrument. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that and what that means?
Yeah, so what we found was that people are looking for different ways of subscribing or making that payment. So looking at how to handle top-ups, or if they could have a pause and resume type facility to help them manage their subscription payments. And also looking at usage and utility metering type payments. So trying to understand if there's a way of linking the usage behavior to how you pay.
So kind of giving more flexibility back to the consumer then, right?
That's right, yeah.
So I think I want to talk also around, we say about a kind of the solutions that are emerging in this space. How is value measured, right? How is we said in the report that it's kind of measured in moments. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
That's right. So some of the interesting examples we already see in the subscription economy, take some of the sports subscription video on demand where we see a monthly payment, which is kind of typical, an annual payment, but we're also seeing weekly passes and season-led passes. So this is getting closer to a usage-based payment. What we're going to move to, I think, is more even closer to usage-based payments. Different ways of paying for subscriptions linked closely to what we're actually doing and how we're using it. So we might see it metered based on daily usage, hourly usage, and looking at ways of arbitrating and managing that payment based on those themes.
Really interesting. So I think a bit like the pay-per-view kind of model, but in more of a subscription ecosystem, you're kind of saying.
That's right. And we'll also see the kind of gamification of payments.
Right.
So we'll start to see things like data being traded for a kind of payment. So you might tick the box to say, I'm prepared to share my data. And for that, you'll get access to premium features.
Rewarded with loyalty. Yeah,
exactly. Or a common use we could imagine is I'll watch an advert to get extended use of something. So there's a kind of trade in terms of something that I can do to put into the pot, and in return I get something back. So it's not just about payment in terms of a monetary value, payment in terms of something else that I can contribute of value.
Very interesting. I think it'd be really useful to kind of demonstrate this in an illustration. I know there's an example in the report. Could you talk us through that kind of that example of a $50 subscription?
Yeah, sure. So there's two things that come to mind with this. One is today's AI subscriptions are kind of interesting. So there's a subscription I use called 11 Labs. 11 Labs is a voice type AI. It's enabling you to clone your voice or use your voice in particular ways, such as for voiceover and such. The AI will create a voice. But within that same tool, so you pay a monthly subscription to use that, but within that same tool, you'll also get credits to use against other AI tools within it. So you then have this kind of hybrid approach of a subscription for the first party, and then for other services that are kind of bundled and included within it, you're using credits against it. And then you can also top up credits for those other services, or you could pay a higher subscription and get more usage and more credits. So we're already seeing this kind of hybridized approach. In the report, we're imagining One Entertain. And the idea with One Entertain is you would pay, say, $50. It gets you access to this One Entertain subscription. And behind the scenes, what's going on is while you're choosing and accessing various different subscription services, you're not actually aware of what you are accessing. You're just consuming films and music and other entertainment-related services. But behind the scenes, One Entertain is arbitrating the payment to those services depending on what you've consumed. So it's making the user experience really easy, so I can access all the services and types of entertainment that I want, but I'm just paying this one sort of overriding fee, and behind the scenes it's all being managed for me.
I mean, I'd subscribe to that definitely if that existed. So yeah, that's really interesting to kind of illustrate that in an example, because it kind of brings the whole thing to life a little bit more. So what does this mean for subscription and bundling and in the future?
Well, I think simply it means we're going to shift from thinking about a subscription as paying for a month of access to paying for a moment of access.
Stay tuned for the second interview with David Haughton, who is the SVP of Technology and Product here at Bango. And welcome back to the second interview of 3, and we'll be looking at the forces behind the future of bundling waits for no one. I'm going to be looking into AI discovery with David Haughton, who's the SVP of Product and Technology. David, how have you been getting on the show?
Yeah, great, absolutely great. We've had plenty of walk-ups, which has always been nice, loads of customer meetings. We've showed off our amazing product demo as well, that's really been hitting home with a lot of our customers.
Yeah, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more into the report, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
So let's going to start with the first question. Into when AI becomes the gateway, what actually happens to the value of owning that app?
So when you say becomes the gateway, I think we're already seeing that happening. So when was the last time you did a Google search? Today?
Well, today,
right. You probably start to see a lot of AI results come up from that.
So, with Gemini and so on.
So no matter what you do, you're already using AI. Now there's a lot of people who are actually using AI as kind of like their first choice to go and answer questions. So from my perspective, AI is already the gateway.
Right, okay.
So that's not changing.
Okay, interesting. Right, let's double down on that and go into a little bit more detail. So what does, in the report we talk about AI being the new access.
Yes.
Could you just elaborate a little bit more onto that and what it actually means?
Yeah, so I think first of all, we're talking about discovery. That's what a lot of people use it for. So they're discovering like information. So when we think about AI as the form of access into subscriptions, for example, they're going to be asking questions about what can I access, what services are available. So let me ask you a question. How do you get recommendations about TV shows?
Probably usually family, friends, probably, I'd say.
Family, friends, right? So think about it this way. When that happens, someone is saying, I like this, Ben. I think you're going to like it. Yeah. What is happening now is AI is learning all about you. You're connecting it to all your services, right? So it's getting to know who you are. So it goes from, I like this, I think you'll like this, Ben, to Ben likes this. I'm going to promote this to him.
The follow-on from that is really what next?
So once you've discovered something, everything then has to go a level deeper. Okay. So now we're talking about how does it actually happen behind the scenes to enable you access to that content. So you found the content that you like, but what content do you have access to today? What content are you eligible for? Because you might be not subscribing to something. So being able to kind of like get a good amount of information about what is available to you, what you can subscribe to, what you can subscribe to automatically is really important. Level down deeper to that is what is actually commercially available, and I think that's probably the hardest problem to solve right now. So yes, you might be able to access content from a third party, but is there a commercial deal in place that allows you to see that and subscribe to it automatically?
And why is this shift happening, right? You look at on the tech side and also on the behavior side.
So I think there's actually quite a bit of a flywheel effect going on at the moment. So, the technology itself is maturing. Like every day something else is being, advertised or promoted, or there's a new news story about AI. People are becoming more familiar with AI as well. So there's kind of like a combination multiplication factor here. So technology is improving, people are using it more, they get more familiar with it. the technology improves even more, they're trusting it more, they're asking it to do more. So I think that's really what's driving kind of like, people, shifting their behavior, so to speak.
So, and even in the report itself, when we look at kind of like demographic splits as well, we're seeing that Gen Z in particular, it's over nearly half, right? Nearly half of people are saying they actually would let their AI discover and use and manage their subscriptions.
Manage subscriptions, right? Manage subscriptions. So yes, absolutely. And with agentic AI, that is becoming way more possible.
Yeah, really interesting. So who owns this access layer? Who owns it?
Good question. Will anyone truly own it? I'm not sure. Okay. Right, so I think there's still going to be quite a bit of fragmentation, at least for the next few years. There's a lot more AI services coming up who may take the crown, you never know. And I think that actually causes a lot of problems for content brands because, who are they going to prioritize when it comes to making sure that their brand itself is being promoted in the right way?
Right. Because this kind of alludes to kind of the whole content is king idea, right?
Absolutely.
Is that the way that we should be looking at that, or is that what's kind of been being questioned here, really?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would say content is king, personally. I think when you start to think about brands, you've got to question how much do the brands actually matter. Everyone knows the big SVOD brands, don't get me wrong. But when you're looking for something, you're looking for the thing that you want to get access to, which is, the TV show, for example. And there's plenty of companies offering that service today, which shows that it's actually quite a big problem.
So if I ask, like, kind of what I'm going to watch tonight, could you talk me through that kind of what would happen?
How it would work?
Yeah, how that would work.
In the future, right?
Yeah.
In the future. Yeah, I mean, today there's some possibilities, right? So AI, like we said before, is starting to get to know you. So it'll probably be able to provide, a more personalized recommendation. As you connect more services into that, it'll probably know more about your calendar. So if you say, hey, what can I watch now? It might know that you're going to be heading out in an hour, so it's not going to recommend a movie.
Right? Some shorts.
Some shorts, right? I mean, okay, maybe it won't recommend that. It should be there for about an hour and a half, right? So I think, you've got that kind of like sort of discovery, personalized recommendation layer. Then we've got to start thinking about the next layer down. We've sort of alluded to this before, but making sure that the offer is available, understanding exactly what people have got access to, and then going down even deeper, making sure that there is an offer that someone can sign up to. We can actually launch that onto a TV, for example, if it is something, some content that you're looking at.
We talk about trust in the report. I think it's a really important topic on this because as we're seeing a lot more of these AI being adopted by different people.
Yes.
What's the main kind of barrier in that trust area?
I'm not sure barrier is probably the way that I would look at it. I would say like who are people trusting is probably the thing that we need to think about, especially when we're talking about managing subscriptions. So obviously people are trusting the subscription providers themselves. But the next level down, we need to think about actually who do they trust that can support those subscriptions being successful. So I think maybe is it half of people are trusting their telcos with that sort of subscription management, and you have to ask why. I mean, to me, the answer is obvious. Why do they trust them? Because telcos power a huge proportion of our lives. Your mobile phone plan, right? Access to the internet, broadband, all of that sort of stuff. There's an existing billing relationship there. They know who you are, right? So it's just natural that you can add on extra services to the existing plans that you have.
And what's the risk really for the content brands, if access is being mediated, right?
Yeah, so in the future, I think we need to start thinking about what does lifetime value actually mean? So there's going to be a shift, right? So lifetime value is going to be a big one. Retention is going to be a big one. As we've sort of described in our report, the way that people pay for things might change, right? So they may subscribe to a bundle, and that bundle might have an allocation of time across multiple services. So how do they start to understand the lifetime value of a customer when it operates like that?
It's kind of like unbundling the bundle, right?
Absolutely.
We talked before about with Giles talking about the kind of dynamic payment structure and this kind of usage-based billing.
That's it.
And that's kind of what you're alluding to, right?
100%.
So thank you for the chat. I'm going to leave it with kind of, if you had to change one thing, right, in today's journey.
Okay. With subscriptions.
With subscriptions and AI, what would it be?
Okay. So for me, as a consumer, let's talk about as a consumer, I'm actually looking quite forward to kind of like that hyper convergence of my life in an AI personal assistant. So all of my time being managed, all of the things that I like being managed, and recommendations just coming to me because I don't have time.
I mean, quite a lot of people get scared about that, right?
I need it.
Yeah,
I need it.
it's
I
getting
need
to
it
that
in my
point.
life.
Well, thank you very much for the chat. I really do appreciate it. Please do stay tuned. We're going to be speaking to Luisa, who's our Chief Commercial Officer, and we're going to be talking about the market split, which is bundle be bundled. Welcome back. We are here for the final interview of the three. I'm joined by Luisa, who is our Chief Commercial Officer, and we're going to be talking about the market split, bundle or be bundled. Luisa, how are you getting on today?
All good, thank you.
Are you enjoying the show?
Busy day,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of things happening here, but exactly, bundle or be bundled became one of those hot topics in the show. Everyone asking, what about this? What we do in the future? So very interesting.
I mean, we've got the badges as well, haven't we, right?
Everyone, so.
So when we talk about the subscription economy becoming the bundle economy, can you just elaborate a little bit on what we're talking about there?
Yeah, we are talking about a lot. So subscriptions are there forever, right? So it's been years that everyone is subscribing to something. And but recently we saw that because of the natural split of everything that you're consuming, there are a lot of subscriptions that you ended up having. And then it becomes like that subscription headache. That's something that we started to see a few years ago. Then to solve that problem, they started to go and starting bundling to get the benefit of, like, at the time that you subscribe to one, you get another benefit.
Yeah.
So in the end, you're consuming all of that at the same time. And also because as well, the direct to consumer acquisition, it became really expensive. So indirect channels like bundles are the way to acquire the user in the best way, and actually those users, they are way more loyal rather than the direct subscription. So that's something that became like an extra benefit when you are doing a partnership. So we naturally saw like most of the brands, the subscription brands, or they are being bundled by someone or they are bundling with someone else. So we saw content providers doing partnerships together to make sure that the user has the best benefit of that. So that's why we see, okay, that subscription economy actually is a bundle economy.
Got you. Yeah, that's a really, really good answer. And I think when we think about bundle be bundled as well and that split, just to elaborate on who's on each side of that partnership?
Yeah, so there are two verticals and two ways to look at this differently because it all depends on the strategy. So the bundler is usually the first party brand and they need to reinforce that benefit with something else. So let's take the example of something that we see very common, the telcos.
We're at Mobile World Congress.
Yeah, we are Mobile World Congress. Let's take the best example. So the telcos naturally from, it's been 20 years that we see that. They started offering first SMS texts. So they were adding a value, it was a value added to their core services.
Yep.
So the first party products are basically the commodity.
Yep.
So it's really hard to compete with your competition if you don't have anything, a differentiator on that. So the bundler is who decides to use a second brand, a third brand to reinforce your message.
Yeah.
So that's a bundler. So a bundlee or who is being bundled is someone who actually your strategy is a bit different. I don't need to over communicate my brand, but I know that brand will bring me the benefit of new users, and I don't need to go D2C because D2C, the cost per acquisition is really high. It gets higher and higher, especially like when we see the SVODs, they have a really tough competition because everyone is getting their own way of, I have my content, it's exclusive and here and there. And so in the end, you need to have like 10 subscriptions to watch everything that you used to watch in the past. So their strategy often is customer acquisition. And as I said before, those acquisitions that happen via the bundle, they became like the user is staying for a longer period of time. So the lifetime value is much higher because they are getting the benefit on the other end. So, okay, all right, we started to see as well the multi-party bundles. And the multi-party bundles is basically when you offer in your brand, you offer like 3 or 4 different brands bundled together with
one price point.
One price point. So with that, it's like even higher, the usage rate, the activation rate, the churn is much lower because everyone is getting the benefit of being together.
Yeah, and in the report itself, we talk about also like the actual consumer behavior around bundles as well, and the differences between different generations and Gen Z and stuff like that. Have you got any anecdotes from kind of what you've seen in the report? Any comments on that?
Oh, there are a lot of interesting things that we saw. So the rise of the AI, and that's something that we thought that it would be just basically being used by the Gen Z because that's something new. Actually, if we see everyone is having at least 1 or 2 subscriptions on the AI side, so they are getting that understanding that I need to have something to support me, but not only one. And then when they see it, that's what we started. So last year when we launched the last report, we were saying that AI was starting to be one of those subscriptions that everyone is getting. Actually now it's going to be like on the 2nd or 3rd place after the SBOTs.
It's crazy how much it's grown, isn't it?
It's impressive, and that's like one of those forces that we see on our report is the rise of AI. So how AI will also help you deciding how you're going to consume that. So the subscription itself on the AI side is becoming so prominent. So for us, I think it's there to stay and to complement everything else that you're having on indirect channels.
I want to talk a little bit around, you mentioned like commoditization, right? So this whole area of like connectivity is being and the downward pressure from like MVNOs coming on the markets. Can you talk about how they could tackle that using kind of bundles?
Yeah, exactly. So not only MVNOs, but especially them and let's talk about like resellers itself, like whoever wants to do that. So when they look at the sense of what's my challenge to being competitive, they all offer the same thing. That's nothing different. So we saw in every single region they have different strategies, but the value that all the third-party brands they have, like if my audience, my target is to have a young generation because my MVNO brand is really looking to that, they will choose those specific brands that will support the acquisition. So we might talk about like what things that can go wrong. So it's exactly that. So you need to understand like who is your target addressable market, your target market, where are you communicating, and what do you need to choose to be successful? Because it can be horrible bundles, so it can be like 0 or minimum uptake rate if you're not communicating well. So it's specifically like in a market where commoditization is the norm, if you're doing nothing, you're losing. You're bleeding your customer base every single month, and the churn can be higher and higher. And that's becoming very common in all the cable companies. Cable, to start, is already at risk because everyone is subscribing to SVODs, etc. So if they are just offering the same thing and they are not adding those subscriptions,
right?
They will die. That's happening in the United States, that's happening everywhere. So that's why they started to add other SVODs to complement, and now they started to add other verticals, because if they're going to be the hub to offer something, why not offer any kind of subscriptions, right? So that's how they are looking to that.
Another example as well that we've spoken about before and mentioned in the report is Revolut, right? And these models of these kind of neobanks coming online and they're bundling connectivity. What's that kind of impact going to happen on the kind of MNOs and telcos?
Actually, if they are not bundling, they will be bundled. And this is exactly what we are saying, right? So that can become just one more choice. And who owns that narrative or the end user? Because the user is just one. He can bundle on your bank account, or they can bundle on the telco side, or they can bundle on their retail app, the super app they are using. So whoever is going to take the lead first, they will own that user. So Revolut is a really great example where they were in the front line. They got the benefit of being digital. So they already have like naturally, they don't have any friction because they are digital first. So for them, it was pretty easy to go to a point like, okay, on my premium account, I'm gonna give them access to content, to connectivity, to insurance,
airport lounge,
lounge,
yeah.
everything. And that if you look at the environment, we all search for something like that.
Yeah,
we want to be to become like really easy on the decision-making process because someone else is doing that for us. So Revolut was, I think it was the first mover, but we saw now on the banking space, lots of the, first of all, the digital banks moving to the same direction. Eventually, the traditional banks, they are looking to that as well because they are already losing the customer base to the digital banks, especially the young generation. So their concern is, oh, my customer base is, they are on the, beyond 50 or 60 years old. Eventually, I need to keep acquiring to keep at least at the same level that I was before. So they need to start innovating as well. So bundles, we are seeing not only, we started to see in telcos because that's what naturally was born, but retail are doing that. So all the super apps, delivery apps, they are doing that. So we see the partnerships that Uber are doing, and also now the retail brands, just like the example that we launched between Continent and Portugal and Disney. So they are looking to that and seeing, oh, there is a value add to do that, not only do whatever it's my core business. You know?
So you're starting to see other kind of resellers competing with each other. So
Yes.
it's not just telco on telco in a market, it's now all these other verticals there.
In Latin America is a very good example where we see the big delivery apps, like especially in Brazil, like iFood, together with competing with now a Chinese brand coming in and Rappi in the same market, and everyone is offering some sort of bundle, but they are competing now. So they started to, now they will have to think, okay, what type of offers do I need to tailor that that will give me a higher activation rate, that will give me a higher retention rate, that will translate into the KPIs that I'm searching for. So if they do not look into the quality of that bundle, of that offer, that also will die. So it's now is a way more work to do than was before, because before not everyone was bundling or offering. So if you were doing something, you were the first mover, the differentiator, you're getting that. Now everyone is doing that. So you need to be like one step ahead on what's the quality of my data, what's the quality of my campaigns, am I communicating, am I giving them the right insights to my audience, how do they activate, what's the benefit they are getting, are they getting the discounts they want, am I getting what I need? So those, and that's a daily analysis. You need to understand exactly how that's going, so then you can still keep on that best position.
Sounds like a lot of work to do that, right?
It is, and that's why we're here. Not everyone can do that by themselves, you know.
Well, thank you very much for the conversation. I would like to say that you can download the report in the QR code. If you join us now, we're going to be having a live Q&A session with all the speakers you've heard from today. And thank you for joining the Bytesize.
Hello and we're back. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the show. We've got David and Giles that are here. So we've got a few different questions that are coming through to us. So we'll get straight into those. We'll start with a question here that's saying, which type of content partners are most compatible with the future bundling? Interested to get the team's view. So who would like to take that one?
I can start with that if you like. So when we were looking at the dynamic payments side, I already gave the example of the sports brands where we can see they're embracing already the closer to usage-based subscription charges. So monthly, seasonal in particular, weekly and annual. But the seasonal element is very closely aligned to the dynamic payment piece. So sports brand are one. I think AI subscriptions already, I give the example of the 11 Labs where we have a subscription and then credits that can be allocated to other AI tools within the same subscription. So I think that's early indication as well of this more hybrid approach to bundling. But where we saw the example of one subscription that could manage and meter other subscriptions within it. So you pay $50, get access to all your entertainment, and then that parent subscription is then allocating who gets paid what and That could actually be any subscription, so anyone could be the primary host, if you like, of that subscription.
Thank you very much for that answer, Giles. Got a good one here from which could be for you, David, considering you spoke about AI. Have you got any examples of you seeing how telcos are kind of embracing AI?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think in a lot of cases, actually, they're still playing catch up. A lot of the forms of AI are really through sort of AI chatbots, sort of enabled on their websites. And I think that's a really good place for us to be involved as well. So having those chatbots, being able to access information from DVM, highlighting and elevating the offers that are being managed, through the subscription channel partnerships. And I think that's probably the biggest area actually that we see from telcos.
Any other ideas you've seen from Giles? Paul, have you seen any of AI being used at telcos at all? Other examples?
I think we'll see it using more and more. I think it's going to revolutionize the customer interface and how they interact with services. And I think our own demo at Mobile World Congress showed that is people no longer want to click on tiles and click on blocks. It needs to be more natural. And as humans, we like to communicate, and therefore I think the way we not just subscribe for services, but purchase services and upgrade and interact needs to be more naturally conversational. So I think it's going to revolutionize that. And on top of that, it will sort of help automate a lot of the tasks, just as AI does in every business, right? It will take a lot of the workload out of some of the telcos' sort of basic tasks that allow them to focus a bit more on innovation, right? Which I think is positive for everybody.
Yeah, I could add another use case that I saw just yesterday in London at the Connected TV World Summit, where Chris van der Linden from Liberty Global was explaining their Super Search tool, which is using AI to aid with discovery. And I think this is perfectly aligned with what we're talking about here with the future of bundling waits for no one. This idea that AI is going to help simplify the discovery process. And I love an example that Google gave where you can imagine a husband and wife sitting in front of the TV and you don't really prompt it or say anything. It's just find something we want to watch, put it on the screen. So you're not really having to say, well, I like dramas and I like action films. It knows that about you and it's just going to find a thing. And what we're imagining here is that we're also going to see the subscription being handled behind the scenes as well.
Awesome. We touched upon this in the report, and we spoke about this, didn't we, Luisa, around Revolut and other kind of neobanks coming online. So how do we? I want to talk about that a little bit more. I think it's a really good kind of topic because this is really a threat for the telcos, right? Where they're starting to now bundle connectivity. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that one?
Yeah, I would say might not be a real threat. The thing is, the market now, we do have many options, right? So telco might be just one of those options. The neobanks, they have a really good advantage because the user naturally, they already have access to the digital world and they already are more like tech savvy in how they can choose the best benefits for them. So not only neobanks, but the banks, they already offer different type of benefits. So it can be discounts, cashback campaigns, or voucher codes. They already offer a bunch of different benefits. So the subscription bundling itself, it becomes one more of those benefits, and they are already looking to that. And they are becoming faster than before. So we saw there was something that were being generated in the past, but now we're seeing a lot of activity, and not in one or two regions, is worldwide. So is the same movement that we saw in the past with telcos, we are seeing with the banks, and they are faster because they are new. So they don't have legacy systems to support. They don't have tech complexities around that. So it can become a really fast channel for the bundling space.
I think also it's about how nimble these companies are, right? And I think fundamentally, in a world where AI is so prevalent and allows you to bring new services to market quickly, companies that survive are the ones that can innovate the fastest and innovate and bring these services to master. And sadly, telcos are historically not that great at that, right? They're generally, part of it is a system issue, but part of it is just the sheer inertia of such a big thing. It's like turning an oil tanker around. And I think the nimble companies are the ones that survive. And when we talk about who owns that brand and who owns that interface. It's going to be whoever provides the best customer experience and moves the fastest and bring these new services the fastest to market. And banks like Revolut, I think, have done a brilliant job at that. But it could be somebody in a completely different sector, some retailer all of a sudden who really starts to innovate. So speed of execution, I think, is super key for who's going to be first and who's going to ultimately win in this market.
Yeah, another question here around kind of at what point does a dynamic payment become a better business model? I think that's quite an interesting. Who would like to have a little go at that one?
I could try. So I think let me bring microdramas to the table for a second. So microdrama is a really interesting new proposition that's coming to market. If you haven't seen this is where you have a subscription model to access a certain amount of short form film, but you get to a certain point where you hit a paywall where you might have to pay something to see the next episode and the next episode. And that's a really fast, dynamic moment for paying to consume content. And that's clearly being extremely successful. So I think it can depend. It's not for every subscription. So I don't think we're saying every product is going to have a dynamic usage-based element to it. Some are suited to monthly payments, and that cycle, or annual payments even, that cycle works very, very well. But I think there will be a kind of evolution here where we're seeing the usage and the payment being closer entwined.
I think it comes to speed of innovation. Ultimately, as customers, you want choice, you want sort of flexibility. So the people who can bring and try these new ways of paying for services and bring them to market faster and test them, and if it doesn't work, move on to something else. Again, it'll be the ones that succeed. It's all about everything in business success now is about speed of innovation, right? And delivering that best customer success.
Yeah, it's just adapting the business model in a way that works. And we saw that it's not something new. And we see that in the past, different type of brands doing or one-time payment for one specific experience, or you pay for a weekly basis. So there are different options that provide you the ability to change whenever you want, and that's how we are going to see the future. So I think it's even linked to a next question, Ben, in which is about how do we know that someone is really ready or not for AI-led recommendation, right? And talking about it is basically to the moment that those subscription brands, they are still being treated as a standalone product, they are not ready to do that. So if they are being treated then in the future as an experience, then yes, that can be one more thing that can add into the different type of payment models, because then you're treating that as one experience that you can combine to another experience, and then you can change and adjust how AI will treat that recommendation, right? So you need to be ready for that. So the AI is not a problem, is the tool that will allow you to offer that.
Thank you, Louisa. I've got a question here coming from, I'll flash it on the screen so everyone can kind of see it, but I will read it out. So thank you for the question. The real challenge that not many bundlers are keen to talk about openly is the low activation level. Do you have any solutions apart from the in-depth research before talking about this for bundlings, and how to improve that activation level for bundled products? Who would like to have another go at that one?
I can take that. So this year, actually, we're developing a set of intelligent workflows. One of them is actually focused on improving those activation and conversion rates. What we're looking at is identifying cohorts of users where we can actually improve those activations. This is something that we're actively exploring at the moment. We are actually in early access for this intelligent workflow. So if there are anyone that's listening to the webinar that would like to get involved and support us on that, more than welcome the chat. But like the question that's been asked is, yes, we are actively looking at opportunities where we can improve the activation rates using the data that DVM has, and identifying opportunities on where we can improve that.
Thank you for that answer. David. Hope that has answered your question. Thank you for them coming in. Another one coming in from Caesar, who I know is a regular attendee at these Bytesize webinars. Thank you for your question here. So some telcos are actually bundling utilities, so gas and electricity, with their own services. Have we got any thoughts on this particular topic?
I'll give you my view. I mean, my view is gas and electricity are sort of almost like subscriptions. They just happen to have a usage element associated with it, but fundamentally there are subscriptions and they're a utility. And I think this is where telco needs to be careful, because telco bundling those because they see them as sort of dual utilities. Well, we also see other people bundling telco because potentially they see it as a dual utility. So again, it comes back to that's providing that sort of best all-round customer experience, because fundamentally, telco, gas, electric, water, they're all sort of utilities. So how do you create an interesting and compelling user experience around that? I think the one value they all have is those are all companies we trust, right? And we're more likely to interact and work with companies we trust. And so that the trust that those brands have built, I think, is sort of super important. And it's they've got to find a better way to capitalize on that. And bundling as many things as you can is clearly the way to do that.
And one thing interesting that I've seen as well on the other side is the utility companies like the gas and electricity, they are bundling services. So they were bundling news app, they were bundling learning apps, like, because you're using that on a household, and sometimes you have kids, and then they started to understand, and I saw that specifically in a couple of countries in Latam, they started to understand the type of users that are in that household, and offering subscriptions they can have that will benefit or their kids or your wife, someone that will use that subscription. That's pretty interesting as well.
Kind of using it as more of a customer loyalty kind of play, right?
And again, knowing your customer, knowing exactly what to offer.
I think one bit of data we've seen time and time again is that the more services that are bundled, the more services a customer takes, the more loyal they become to that first party service. So there's a huge opportunity here for whoever wants to be offering the bundles.
And actually also, Giles, I mean, we saw the data where actually the net promoter score goes up. So your satisfaction, not only do you become more loyal, but you're a happier customer as well. And obviously those two are connected. But it's an interesting dynamic that the more you get, the happier you become, because you would think the more you get, the more potential there is for things to go wrong. But all the data points to completely the opposite.
I think a question's come through here around, if I'm a subscription provider being bundled, what kind of offers should I be considering? Should I be considering kind of a period of free? Should I be a period of discounted rate? How is that kind of that dynamic worked out, and who's that conversation usually between?
I think it depends what the reason is for the bundle being created. It's an opportunity to add value and delight the customer. I think there's some really interesting opportunities where there's perhaps seasonality to a bundle, and you can create an asymmetric bundle so both are used for longer. I think that's quite a nice way. So it does depend on the objective. And I think also the better value you can create, either through your own bundle sold through perhaps a mobile operator, or a multi-party bundle, which is one where there's 2, 3, 4 different parties coming together into a single price point, where you can create more value and more uniqueness. I think that's also going to drive benefit to all parties involved. So those are the sorts of things to consider. What are the objectives, and how can I provide more value, more uniqueness to delight the customer in the end?
A question here about AI. So if AI starts choosing and switching and managing those subscriptions, what's that kind of impact on the brands that are part of those services being offered?
It's a good question. I mean, if AI, so imagine a situation where you speak to some general AI and say, find me the best 5G in my area, and it instantly is able to subscribe you, then it's completely bypassed all brand at that point. It hasn't gone through a website, it hasn't gone through some trade up flow, it hasn't looked into different aspects of offers that are available. It's just gone straight through, chosen and subscribe you. So in that instance, a brand could be bypassed entirely. However, a strong brand generally is going to be a strong brand in AI. So people may choose because of a brand. So it's two-sided really.
I think also you demoed some of this, didn't you, as well, and David, in some of the demo that was created at MWC. Is there anything you want to elaborate on that particular demo that was shown?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to positioning. So as Giles said, you could be in a situation where going back to a bundle or be bundled, you could just automatically be bundled without really understanding that that's happening. I think that's a real sort of concern for major brands. So thinking about how you position yourself, and that's going to be through typical things like metadata and keyword matching, as well as understanding kind of like what people are asking for through sort of AI technologies, is going to become even more important than it currently is.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much to our speakers and your time at MWC. I hopefully you're all rested and feeling better after that very, very strenuous week. But yeah, if you want to get access to the report, you can download it at the Bango website, or there was QR code earlier in the show. And yeah, feel to reach out to us if you have any questions around subscription bundling. I'm sure we'll be happy to have those questions. You connect with any of us on LinkedIn. And yes, stay tuned, and we'll be in touch for the April edition of Bytesize. Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon.